Odyssey Through the Shadows of Genius, generated by StoryWave.ai.
Chapter 1. First Pitch, The Call to Play. In the burgeoning cityscape of New York in the mid-19th century, a confluence of folk traditions and competitive spirit was fermenting amidst the cobblestone streets and growing urban sprawl. It was here, in the shadow of progress, that a pastime would emerge, uniting diverse cultures and classes in the pursuit of a common joy. This was the genesis of a game that would ingrain itself into the very fabric of a nation, a contest of bat and ball that would come to be known as baseball. As the early morning mist clung to the emerald expanse of the Elysian Fields in Hoboken, New Jersey, Henry Chadwick, the esteemed sports writer and baseball historian, stood solemnly, his keen eyes surveying the grounds that would become a crucible for the sport's infancy. "Remarkable," he muttered to himself, "how from such humble beginnings a mighty oak shall grow." Nearby, Alexander Cartwright, with the keen focus of an inventor, was deep in conversation with a younger man, the sinewy and agile Louis Fenn Wadsworth. "You see, Louis," Alexander's voice carried a tone of earnest innovation. "The key is in the configuration of the diamond, the symmetry of the infield, and the clear delineation of foul territories." Louis, hands resting on his bat, nodded thoughtfully. "But we must ensure the game is challenging enough to captivate, yet fair enough to encourage widespread appeal," he replied, the sunlight catching the determination in his eyes. It was not just a game they were discussing. It was the embodiment of democratic ideals, the shaping of a sport that would not distinguish between commoner and elite. Alexander continued, "And the bases, spaced just so to make the sprint from station to station a test of both speed and resolve." Meanwhile, Abner Doubleday, who would later be mythologized as the game's creator, was merely a spectator, his illustrious military career casting a long shadow over the field. He watched, his posture betraying a mix of curiosity and skepticism, as the Knickerbocker Baseball Club gathered to inscribe their names into the annals of history. The grounds swelled with anticipation as the Knickerbockers convened to deliberate the codification of rules that would serve as the bedrock for the game. Voices rose and fell in heated debate, with members fervently arguing the merits of each proposed rule. "Order, gentlemen, please," called out one club leader, striving to shepherd the discourse. As the sun climbed higher, burning away the morning chill, the assembly reached a consensus, putting to parchment the guidelines that would shape their beloved sport. "3 strikes, you're out," declared one member, his voice resonating with the gravity of the moment. "4 balls, take your base," affirmed another, his statement punctuated by nods of agreement. The final obstacle, however, was the dispute over the origins of the game. Some members clamored for recognition of their own versions of bat and ball games, while others argued for a fresh start, a game devoid of the vestiges of its predecessors. The tensions were palpable, as each individual's pride and memory of childhood games colored the negotiation. In the end, it was a compromise of spirits and traditions that prevailed. The Knickerbocker rules, as they would be known, were a tapestry woven from the threads of rounders, town ball, and other folk games, each contributing to a unified vision of baseball. It was a genesis not of singular invention, but of collective adaptation, a testament to the game's ability to reflect the collaborative heart of a burgeoning nation. As the club members dispersed, their footsteps left faint impressions on the field, soon to be trodden by countless others who would embrace the game. The rules they set forth would echo through time, shaping the destiny of baseball as it journeyed from these shadowed beginnings to the sunlit fields of America's future. And so, with the crack of ash against horsehide, the call to play was sounded, and the Odyssey through the shadows of genius commenced, an odyssey that would see baseball's transformation from a pastime of the few to the enduring love of the many. Chapter 2. Crossing Bases, the Evolution of a Sport. As the gentle breeze of the 1860s graced the verdant fields across America, the sport of baseball, cradled in the Knickerbocker embrace, began to stretch its limbs. The game, still in its youth, was sprouting new dimensions, taking bold strides from the sandlots and meadows into a more structured realm of competition and spectacle. In the lively streets of Cincinnati, the buzz of excitement was palpable. A vision for baseball's future was taking root, with the formation of an ensemble that would forever alter the game's course, the Cincinnati Red Stockings. Their manager, Harry Wright, with a steely gaze and a strategic mind, was assembling a cadre of ballplayers whose skill would be bartered for a radical departure from the amateur spirit that pervaded the sport. Henry, now a venerated voice in the baseball community, found himself amidst a throng of onlookers at one of Cincinnati's packed ballparks, his notebook in hand. "Astonishing, is it not?" he remarked to a fellow spectator. "To witness baseball metamorphose from a pastime to a profession." The spectator, a local tradesman with a love for the game, nodded in agreement. "Indeed, Henry. But I do wonder if the soul of the sport risks being tarnished by the luster of coin." This sentiment echoed in the musings and conversations among fans and players alike. The schism between amateur enthusiasts and the burgeoning professional cadre was widening. Skepticism hung in the air, dense as the cigar smoke that wreathed the heads of the well-heeled patrons attending the games. Yet, there was an undeniable allure to the Red Stockings and their competitive prowess. Their uniforms, a striking palette of crimson and white, became a symbol of baseball's ambition. The team's meticulously groomed playing field, marked by crisp baselines and an immaculately leveled pitcher's mound, reflected the professional veneer that Harry Wright sought to impart. "Watch closely, gentlemen," Harry would often say to his team in the locker room, his voice firm yet inspiring. "Every play we make, every game we win, we're not just scoring runs, we're charting the course of baseball history." His players, a mix of seasoned ballists and eager young talents, listened intently. The camaraderie within this pioneering professional team was tangible, each member acutely aware they were part of something greater than the sum of their individual skills. As the Red Stockings notched victory after victory, the acclaim and criticism crescendoed in equal measure. Detractors decried the loss of the game's innocence, while proponents celebrated the elevation of skill and the spectacle of the sport. It was a period of tumultuous growth, where the foundations laid by the Knickerbockers were both honored and challenged. In the stands, the discourse continued, often led by the most ardent devotees of the game. "Shall we cling to tradition or embrace the evolution before us?" questioned a longtime fan, his furrowed brow indicative of the internal conflict many felt. The response came from a newer admirer of the game, a young clerk with dreams of taking to the field himself. "Change is the only constant, my friend. Baseball, like any grand endeavor, must adapt to thrive." As the chapter of the Red Stockings unfolded, the narrative of baseball expanded. The sport was crossing bases, from the simplicity of its origins to the complexities of a national phenomenon. This transition was marked by grand achievements and growing pains, by the clash of ideals and the convergence of dreams. And so the quest continued, a journey through the shadows of genius, as baseball's Odyssey wove through the fabric of America, stitching together an ever-changing tapestry of sport, culture, and identity. Chapter 3. Home Run, Baseball's Rise to Prominence. Within the bustling streets and growing cities of America, a symphony of cheers and the crack of bat against ball announced the ascendance of baseball to the forefront of the nation's heart. It was a time of rapid expansion, both in the game's reach and its internal governance. The formation of the National League, a consortium of teams with sights set on elevating the game to new heights, marked a pivotal chapter in the sport's journey. In a spacious office lined with leather-bound books and adorned with the paraphernalia of the game, William Hulbert, the shrewd and business-minded architect of the National League, was in the midst of a fervent discussion with Albert Spalding, a former player turned magnate. Their conversation was a volley of ideas and strategies, each man laying out his vision for the league's future. "William, we mustn't allow the sport to fracture under the weight of its own success," Spalding asserted, his fingers drumming on the polished surface of the mahogany desk. "The league must present a united front, a standardization of the rules to ensure the integrity of the game." Hulbert, his eyes alight with the same fervor that drove his entrepreneurial spirit, nodded in agreement. "Agreed, Albert. And with our collective leadership, we'll bring order to the chaos. The National League will be the touchstone for professional baseball. The conflict between this nascent organization and existing leagues was inevitable. As the National League sought to impose order, resistance from rival factions and independent clubs grew fierce. The battle for control over the sport was not merely a contest of wills, but an ideological struggle over the soul of baseball. Out on the fields, where the grass was a vivid green and the dirt infields bore the scars of cleats and slides, landmark games unfolded, drawing spectators in droves. It was here that Cap Anson, a towering figure with a mustache as formidable as his batting average, made his mark. Cap called out a teammate as Anson approached the plate. "Let's show 'em why they pack these stands." Cap, his bat a seasoned piece of lumber that had sent many a pitcher's offering soaring into the stands, grinned. "Boys, it's just another day at the office," he replied, his voice carrying a confidence born of countless at-bats. The game was a spectacle of strategy and athleticism, with players like King Kelly, whose quick wits and bold base running earned him the adoration of fans, and whose theatrical slides into base much a performance as they were a play for victory. Yet it was not just the players who were carving their names into the story of baseball. Umpires, donned in dark suits and top hats, were the arbiters of this new world. Their decisions often met with a cacophony of jeers or applause, depending on the call's favor. "The gentleman behind the plate has called it a strike," exclaimed a young vendor, hawking scorecards to eager fans. The vendor, with a keen eye for the ebbs and flows of the game, provided a running commentary as he weaved through the crowd. As the season unfurled, each game became a thread in the larger narrative of baseball's ascent. The National League, through trial and error, successes and setbacks, began to solidify its place as the premier institution of professional baseball. The chapter closed with the sport at the precipice of a new era, an era where the echoes of the bat and ball would resonate not just in the stands of America's ballparks, but in the collective memory of a nation enraptured by its new favorite pastime. The quest for a unifying structure, the struggle for dominance, and the sheer joy of the game converged, propelling baseball into the annals of American folklore. Chapter 4, Ninth Inning, Legacy and Transformation. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the field, where the hallowed diamond bore the marks of countless cleats and historic plays. It was here, on these sacred grounds, that baseball's narrative continued to unfurl, weaving together the threads of tradition and the zest for modernity. In the clubhouse, now a polished hall adorned with the images of baseball legends, two figures stood in reflection. One was a seasoned manager, Joe, who had seen the game evolve from radio broadcasts to high-definition telecasts. The other was Rachel Robinson, a dignified woman whose late husband, Jackie Robinson, had courageously integrated baseball, shattering the color barrier with his historic Major League debut. Joe, his cap in hand, turned to Rachel. "Your husband, Jackie, he did more than just play ball. He changed it, and he changed this country," he said, his voice a soft, respectful timbre. Rachel, her eyes reflecting the depth of her experience, replied with a touch of pride. "He had the strength of character that transcends the game. His legacy, it's a beacon, urging us forward." Their conversation turned to the World Series milestones, moments that had captivated nations. Babe Ruth's called shot, Bob Gibson's strikeouts, Joe Carter's walk-off homer. Each a story within the story, Joe mused, each name evoking a cascade of memories. In a nearby locker, a young player, Miguel, laced up his spikes, overhearing fragments of their exchange. He was part of a new generation, one that faced modern challenges unheard of in the early days. Controversies over performance-enhancing drugs and the intrusion of technology into the purity of the game. Miguel emerged from the locker room, his gaze meeting that of an older player, Tom, who had navigated the tumult of the steroid era. "Tom," Miguel began, his voice tinged with uncertainty, "how do we honor the game's past while embracing its future?" Tom, his face weathered like an old mitt, turned to him and said, "We play with integrity, respect for those who came before us, and a commitment to leave the game better than we found it." The conversation was cut short as the loudspeaker announced a moment of silence to honor the players who had served during World War II. Their absence from the field a stark reminder of the world beyond the ballpark. As the silence lifted, the announcer's voice filled the stadium, recounting the tales of Ted Williams and Joe DiMaggio, stars whose brilliance on the field was matched by their service off it. Let us never forget the sacrifices made by these men. Their contributions to our nation and to the game of baseball, the announcer declared. The game commenced with the sharp report of a fastball into the catcher's mitt, the crowd erupting in anticipation of the drama that would unfold. In the stands, a father explained to his son, "This is more than a sport. It's a mirror of our society, reflecting our triumphs and our trials." As the innings progressed, each pitch, each hit, each strategic decision was a testament to the enduring spirit of the game. Baseball, ever transforming, continued its quest, balancing the reverence for its storied past with the relentless march of progress. The final chapter of our Odyssey closed with the setting sun casting a golden glow over the field, a silent acknowledgement of the legacy carved by the countless players, managers, and fans who had shaped the game. Baseball, America's pastime, stood as a cultural symbol, its journey through the shadows of genius, a blueprint for its continued evolution in the hearts of generations to come.
Thank you for listening. Subscribe now and visit our website, StoryWave.ai, to start creating your own generative audiobooks today. StoryWave is the only true on-demand entertainment portal,